Am I the a-hole for refusing to tone myself down after my fiancé's family said I'm too outspoken to be a good daughter-in-law? I, 26F, recently got engaged to my partner, 31M, of 5 years. For the sake of this post, I'll call him Ray, and I'll call myself Mel. We've been together since 2021 and met through work. From the very beginning, both of us have been pretty independent, financially and otherwise. We built everything on our own, and that's kind of been the foundation of our relationship. We got engaged in February 2026 after deciding we were finally in a stable place financially to do it properly. In my culture, engagements are a bit elaborate. There's a whole tradition of exchanging gifts, especially from the groom's side to the bride's family, and just a lot of formalities overall. From the start, Ray and I agreed that we would handle all the expenses ourselves. I come from a very close-knit, supportive family, and I've always been very family-oriented. Ray, on the other hand, has a more distant relationship with his family. From what he's told me, it's because of some issues from his past, so he prefers to keep his distance from them, even though they're well off. So, a bit of background about Ray. He's currently in a solid technical job, but earlier he wanted to pursue something more alternative, not very traditional. Because of that, his family didn't really support him back then. In fact, he told me they basically asked him to figure things out on his own after his 12th. Like, if you can make it, do it yourself kind of situation. That obviously left some resentment, but Ray is honestly a very forgiving person. He doesn't hold on to things. I'm kind of the opposite. I remember everything, and I don't really forgive easily. So that difference has always been there between us. Anyway, when we started planning the engagement, we were both very clear. We'd budget everything ourselves and keep it tight. We're both very particular about finances, so everything was planned properly, down to details. We also made sure to include our friends because they've been a huge part of our lives. My parents were completely supportive. Their attitude was basically, it's your money, your decision, which made things really easy on my side. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, his family started stepping in. His aunt said she wanted to handle the gifts instead of us. It caught me off guard because, why now? But Ray told me to just let her, like if she wants to do it, let her. So I agreed. Then his mom said she wanted to get our rings. The thing is, I had already chosen simple silver rings for us, very minimal, very us. But she sent 2 gold rings instead and told Ray that I could pick whichever I liked. Both of them were very feminine in design. One was slightly more neutral, so I said I'd go with that. But then I heard through Ray that his mom had commented something along the lines of, she'll obviously pick this one because it's more expensive. That didn't sit right with me. I didn't say anything at the time, but I started getting this weird feeling. Like something was off. I can't explain it properly, but I just felt a little uneasy. Still, I brushed it aside because I didn't want to create issues before the engagement. The engagement itself went great. Everything was smooth, games, laughter. Both families seemed happy, no drama. It honestly felt perfect in the moment. But after it ended, once his family left, since the bride's side hosts everything, that's when things started to shift. And that's where the real problem begins. So for the engagement, we had arranged accommodations for all our friends nearby, guest houses, food, everything. Ray and I had planned it all in advance and covered the costs ourselves. No confusion there. Now, his family was staying for about 3 days around the engagement, and on the night of the engagement, they said they wanted to host dinner for everyone. We were fine with it. In fact, the day before, they had invited me over too, and it was actually really nice, very warm, welcoming, even a bit celebratory with party poppers and all. So I had no reason to feel weird at that point. But on the actual night, the vibe was completely different. They had asked us to come by 8 p.m., so we showed up on time. But the moment I walked in, something felt off. It just felt cold, like the energy had completely shifted. I can't explain it properly, but it was noticeable. I was mostly with my friends, but after a while I went downstairs to check on the food because everyone was waiting. His mom and aunt were there, so I went up to them and hugged them. I'm a very affectionate person, and since they'd always said they wanted a daughter, I genuinely tried to treat them like my own family. But their reaction was really cold. No warmth, no response, nothing. It genuinely threw me off. I kept thinking, did I do something? I still brushed it aside and asked about the food. That's when they said, in a very flat tone, something like, we're already very tired. Now it's your responsibility to serve everyone. And I don't know, it wasn't what they said, it was how they said it. If they had just said, hey, we're exhausted, can you help serve your friends? I would have done it happily. No issue at all. But the way it came across felt more like a command, like suddenly everything was on me. I didn't react there. I just went back, told my friends we'd do a buffet instead, brought out the food, plates, everything, and honestly, my friends handled it easily. Everyone just served themselves, and the night carried on. But it stayed in my head. Before leaving, I told Ray that I didn't like how they spoke to me and that something felt off. He just said, "Let it be for tonight. We're here to enjoy with friends. We'll talk about it tomorrow." So I said okay. We went ahead with our after-party plans. He hung out with the guys, I stayed back with my friends, we talked, had a few drinks, and eventually called it a night. And then the next morning, things got even weirder. The next morning, I wake up early because our friends had to leave by 10. I was waiting for Ray, but I already had this weird, heavy feeling in my chest, like something wasn't right. Then he calls me, and the first thing he says is that he had a really bad morning. The way he was talking at first, it almost felt like he was blaming me, which immediately made my stomach drop. I told him what had happened the previous night, and then he came to meet me briefly. That's when he told me he couldn't stay and had to go back home. I asked him what was going on, and that's when everything came out. Apparently, he had a huge fight with his parents that morning. They were saying things about me, like I'm too outspoken, that I wouldn't make a good daughter-in-law, that I don't understand responsibility, basically just tearing me down. I asked him what he said in response, and he told me he defended me. He reminded them that they've known me for 5 years, that this isn't new, that I've always been like this. But it wasn't just his parents. Some relatives had also started saying things along the same lines, like people don't like girls who are too outspoken. And then we kind of traced back where this might have started. During the engagement, we both gave speeches. He spoke beautifully about me, about our journey, how we met, everything. And when it was my turn, I talked about him too, about how he used to work out of town but chose to move back when we got serious, how he renovated his house, how much effort he put into building a life for us. I also mentioned how involved I was in that process, like choosing tiles, kitchen designs, all those little things. I said it in a very appreciative way, like he values my choices, he includes me, he's a great partner. At that time, he was really happy hearing it. It felt like a normal, loving speech. But apparently his parents didn't take it that way. They somehow twisted it into me controlling things or being involved in money decisions. Also, his family had started renovating the basement floor along with the garage because they wanted a place they could stay after his dad's retirement. They have another property as well, but I guess they wanted to use it as a summer home. They had poured money into it as well to their share. Since my family comes from a more humble background, and I've always been independent and supported my own family, they took it as me being money-minded? Like I'm here for what he has. Which honestly shocked me because they already knew all of this about me. So all of that built up into this huge argument at his place, with relatives adding fuel to it. At that point, I just asked him straight up, "Do you actually think I'm after your money?" And he said no. Immediately. Because he knows me. He knows I've always been self-reliant, and I've never depended on anyone financially, not even my own parents. But still, the fact that this even became a discussion after everything we've been through together just felt really off to me. Now his family sees me as this proud, rude, overly outspoken girl who doesn't deserve their son. So I just want to ask, am I the a-hole for not toning myself down and refusing to fit into their idea of a daughter-in-law? Update. I currently work 2 jobs. One is my desk job and another tutoring job. My desk job pays well, but tutoring kids gives me unbridled joy and an extra income, which covers all my household expenses, the one I directly give to my parents. That's around 40K in INR. 1 floor of the house that Ray had renovated, I was using that space for my classes. I teach kids after school, so I had basically set up my batches there. Technically, I was renting it, but he never actually took money from me. Instead, I used to pay the cleaning lady directly since my students would make a mess, and she cleaned the whole house anyway. Everything was running smoothly. And then suddenly, after all this drama, his parents said they didn't want me coming to the house anymore. His dad tried to soften it by saying something like, "It doesn't look good for the girl to come over every day after the engagement." But this was something I had been doing for over a year. Every single day. Nothing about it was new. So it felt very targeted. What made it worse was that my classes were about to start again in a week, and I had no backup plan. I didn't even have time to process emotionally because, practically, I was stuck. Still, I told Ray not to fight with them over this. I didn't want things to escalate further. I spoke to my parents, and they were supportive as always. They just said we'll find another place. But finding a new place in 2 to 3 days is not easy. Then things got even more uncomfortable. On the 3rd day, Ray moved all my teaching stuff off that floor and kept it in his garage. Not because he wanted to, but because his parents were asking him to literally show them on video call that my things were removed. That really got to me. It felt like I was being monitored or pushed out in a very harsh way, but I still didn't react. I just told him to give me a couple of days to figure something out. The next day, I went out looking for places. I found 2 options. One decent but unavailable at that moment, and another, a really cramped space that honestly wasn't suitable for my students. On top of that, the rent was almost double what I was paying indirectly before. I was stressed, confused, and just trying to make a decision by the evening. And then things escalated again. Someone informed his family that my stuff was still in the garage, and suddenly his aunt and mom got really aggressive about it. Like, they're not taking us seriously, we're coming there. That kind of tone. At that point, I just snapped internally. I didn't want to deal with any more of it. So I went, took all my stuff, and shifted everything into that cramped space. It wasn't ideal at all, barely enough room, difficult to arrange, but I made it work somehow because I just wanted to be done with the situation. My classes started. Life kind of resumed. And then, while we were settling engagement expenses and everything, more things started coming up through Ray, because he doesn't hide anything from me. Whatever he hears from his parents or relatives, he tells me. And that's when I started realizing this wasn't just a one-off issue. So after that, more comments kept coming in from their side. Things like, she's very outspoken, which is fine, but in front of in-laws, she should be a little quieter. Or that I should learn how to behave like a daughter-in-law. And honestly, that just didn't sit right with me at all. I told Ray very clearly, this is probably why certain people in his family get walked over. I wasn't raised like that. If someone expects me to suddenly shrink myself down after marriage, then they should say it openly now because I'm not going to pretend to be someone I'm not. All of this has been a lot. Ray broke down during all of this. And in 5 years, I had never seen him cry. Not once. That shook me more than anything else. We had a huge emotional fallout, not with each other, but with everything happening around us. It felt like we were on the same boat, but the water was so rough that we were just trying not to drown. I've built myself from scratch. I come from a humble background, yes, but everything I am today, I've earned. I've worked multiple jobs, sometimes 3 in a single day. People around me know who I am. I don't need to prove that I'm not money-minded or selfish. If I wanted money, I had options. I didn't even know half of Ray's financial situation when we started dating. He was living outside the city. I chose him for who he is, not what he has. So all of this suddenly being twisted into something else just feels unfair. And then their justification? Apparently, they felt they weren't served properly during the engagement, that they weren't seated well, that no one personally offered them food. But the thing is, our engagement was very family style. Both sides had proper arrangements. My relatives had traveled from far away. There were delays, yes. They came late, I got late because of makeup, and I literally took the blame on myself and joked about it to keep things smooth. Food was buffet style after the ceremony. Everyone ate, but somehow, the narrative became that they were ignored. And then came the bigger statement that I prioritize my family too much, and after marriage, I'll always put my parents first, so I won't be a good fit. And to that, I said yes. Of course I will prioritize my parents. That doesn't mean I can't love or respect another family. But I'm not going to stop being a daughter to become someone's ideal daughter-in-law. P.S. I am a content writer, and I tend to ramble on and on about stuff. Thank you for reading it if you did. Thank you, all my fellow potatoes. Update 2. Thank you so much for the advice and comments. I do understand it is a problem with both my fiancé and his family. We never had this problem before the engagement, and this family did seem very chill and inviting. Maybe it was a ruse to see how much I will bend for the LOL, but since I didn't, it turned into a bigger problem. I talked with Ray, and we both decided that we should get away from the family and start a new life altogether, no strings attached. He agreed to leave this house. Context: this house was gifted by his grandmother to him before her passing. The paperwork has not yet shifted to his name, and his father has already taken the paperwork. He is applying for jobs in a different city, and he will be moving out in a month. I had a discussion with my parents, and they believe that I can survive alone and do not need to depend on anyone, as they have brought me up as a strong individual. We both had a long discussion about our future and how we both see our goals. Though most of it aligns, the family situation is harsh. He has told me that he will move away, and we can start our own journey, with no interference from his family. Once he told his parents that he is going low contact with them, it has been hell for him. For example, they asked for the backup generator back that they had given for the house, along with the RO filter and even a laptop, which he doesn't use for work. He gave it back with no hesitation. I am proud of him for sticking by his decision. He has blocked all the relatives and gone in C with them, who had stirred the pot, and LC with his parents and his brother. He hasn't told them he is moving away currently. Also, he has agreed to not call them at our wedding or any of his family members if it doesn't seem fit to me. I love this man to the moon and back, and seeing him broken makes my heart hurt. I know most of you believe it is a fiancé problem. I agree to some point, and he agrees too. But everyone wants to take care of family. Everyone wants to have a harmonious relationship. I hope there are no more problems, and I can marry the one God chose for me. Amen.
Bye.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update.